I mean, you can just feel it, the excitement of rookie minicamp. It's upon us. I mean, it's electric. Sam McDowell was all over it. We will talk about it. Who looked good? What are the biggest takeaways from this, shorts worn practice, t-shirt and short practice? We're going to get to the bottom of it. We can't talk about Josh Simmons, how he looked, who else might have popped there. We'll get into that. Which UDFA has the best chance of making the Chiefs team? They actually do a pretty good job of finding guys who aren't drafted along the way, who is someone who has a chance to make this Chiefs roster. What are their biggest needs now after the draft? The main part of free agency and the draft are over. So what do they need to be looking at with the picked over remnants of free agency? We'll discuss that. Also, where do they rank? Should they be number one on these power polls? We're talking about it right here, right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. Off and running here on a Tuesday night. Remember, if you are catching us via the podcast, you can always be a part of the conversation when we go live. We do it Tuesday nights, 9:30 p.m., Friday at 10 a.m. We've got a number of folks already in the chat room. You can be a part of it. Let's talk about minicamp. It is upon us. It's always exciting. Could you feel the electricity, Sam? I mean, was there a buzz? How would you describe just the energy around rookie minicamp?
It feels very much like rookies who are learning the playbook for the first time. This is the most meaningless practice I think the Chiefs will hold all year. What's more important is probably the classroom stuff that these guys are doing during these 3 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, when they have them in town. And it's just, it's a lot of guys swimming right now and trying to learn what's supposed to be done.
Yeah. Have you ever had a coach, Jeff, tell you, boy, rookie minicamp? I mean, that's the essence of what it is we do. Like, what do coaches say about, you got to start somewhere. I do get it. Right. So everything begins somewhere. I agree with Sam. I think everyone would, that it's the getting the playbook and starting to figure out what everything is. But, what do you hear from coaches? Like, are they just thrilled to get the guys back together?
Well, look, there's the guys that obviously they drafted. They want to see them and spend time around them. And some teams are in more dire need of help. So, I was talking to Garrett Dieter about this last week, and we were talking about he went to the Giants rookie minicamp when he was a first-year player. And he said, it was all walkthroughs and classroom stuff and 20 guys. And you couldn't really show anything in a camp like that. Whereas you go to the Chiefs, it's actually a lot more beneficial for the coaches and the scouts to try to find some hidden gems in there, because they're bringing in 60 guys and trying to actually unearth some people. So, it's like Sam says, I haven't been to one of these things in 2 decades. So I feel for Sam going out there and watching a whole bunch of no-name guys who are going to be working for UPS in a couple months. But there's value. Everybody sees the value in it for the young, because there's only so many opportunities you have for these young guys to actually get them going before they go to training camp. This is it in minicamp, really. That's it.
Yeah, it's true. Guys, I guess, can kind of pop. The Chiefs do it a little bit different in the sense that there's some athleticism out there. I guess for the undrafted guys, it is a chance to show you can digest something and then maybe flash a little bit of athleticism. Sam, I don't know. We'll get into the UDFAs that we think have the best chance to make the roster, but I guess there's a little something for them, maybe.
Yeah, I remember that, Brett Veach told me a story one time that it was during rookie minicamp that Tershawn Wharton popped for him and thought, wow, this guy is really quick. His twitch is incredibly quick and his get off the line of scrimmage is really quick. So I'm not saying you can't make an impression out here, because you certainly can make an impression out here. The Chiefs every year sign a couple of guys based on what they showed at rookie minicamp. I remember one of them last year. I think it was Curtis Jacobs that they signed, or maybe he was already a UDFA already, but he ended up playing like 10 games for the Patriots last year. Like, there definitely are guys that can make an impression this time of year that end up on your roster.
Yeah. Let's talk about the first round pick, Josh Simmons. We know coming back from the injury. What did you see? How did he look? We got to hear some of his comments and some of his thoughts, but at least got to see him out there doing individual drills. What'd you see?
Yeah, I was quite surprised at how much he participated. It's the individual drills, but that doesn't just mean like one-on-one stuff. I mean, he's doing team drills that don't have a defense. So he's not involved in the stuff that has any sort of contact. But when they line up like 5 offensive linemen and just, are doing the offensive plays, like, he's out there at left tackle. And I said that I was surprised, but who else was surprised? Was Andy Reid. I asked him about him moving out there, and he said, I was surprised at how well he was doing out there moving. It looks like he's really comfortable with it. Let me give people context about Andy Reid's like this time of year. He cannot figure out why he's talking to media during rookie minicamp most of the time. Like, does not understand why this is important enough to validate having a media session with us. And I'm telling you, like, for Andy Reid lingo, he was giddy about what he saw with Josh Simmons over the week. He said, it looks like he's got some talent there, doggone it. I heard a guy.
Is he swearing too? Is he cussing out there?
Well, doggone it is his swearing.
Yeah.
I left a media session with Andy Reid, and I rarely leave a media session with Andy Reid with more terrible telling information. I left there thinking he's got a better chance to start than I did when I walked into that room.
Is that a sales job, Jeff? Is that like,
But what? Yeah. Like Andy Reid?
Sounds like.
Is Andy Reid a salesman now? Since when?
Now?
Since when?
I remember Jared Reed was going to be the defensive player of the year when he was on this roster a few years ago.
From Andy Reid? What did Andy Reid say about him?
Jared Reed?
Yeah.
You don't remember this? Jared Reed was supposed to be a superstar.
Talking about the tackle? That had
the tackle?
Down?
Soren remembers this.
I remember him liking him. I guess, I don't know, what was the comment specifically?
I'm just saying he was high on him and the guy never did anything.
Yeah, he did not.
The guy's still playing into his mid-30s, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still playing. He seems to play better not in Kansas City.
Not in Kansas City.
That. Everywhere else he goes, he seems to get a much higher rep about it. For Andy Reid getting excited, rule of thumb, no, he does not get excited. Right? Like, I think he plays everything down. Like Kingsley Suamati,
I don't think that.
We weren't. By
the way, can I clarify that? I'm not talking about that this is an indication that Josh Simmons is an all-pro. I'm talking about this was an indication of what Andy Reid thinks of the player. Right. And he usually tries to keep that stuff close to the vest.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I think.
I know.
I'm actually agreeing with you. I think he does like to keep things. We'll see. Is his favorite line, right?
Yes.
Like we know that. Like we kind of know the timeline is practice a week, then not play, like in season, practice a week, not play, and then practice another week. And then you can go, we can pretty much, we'll just see. And he's gotten a little more forward of late in the sense that he'll go ahead, like guys that, like the timeline doesn't match up and the guy's not going to play. And it's his first time practicing in 9 weeks. It's like, well, he's probably going to be out. He's doubtful. But before it'd be like, oh no, we'll see. He'd just try to leave it open-ended. I think he's become a little bit more honest about the things that are just blatantly obvious. But this, to me, follows up. Here's why I asked, Sam, here's kind of my skepticism. Yes, this is not par for the course for Andy Reid, just like on draft night when he goes, oh, he'll be ready for camp.
Yeah.
Like, well, I know you've met with him, and I know you've talked to him, and I know you've Zoomed him, and I know you've done a lot of testing of him medically. I know you've talked to a lot of medical people. You guys have done a lot of research on it. When does he ever offer that?
Never.
He doesn't. And so, but I don't know what to make of it. Like, let's go back to Kingsley Suamataia. What did he say about Kingsley Suamataia? Nothing, as I recall. It was an open competition. We watched when they weren't in pads. Wanya Morris and Kingsley Suamataia seemed to get the same amount of reps, right? As soon as they put the pads on, it was all Kingsley Suamataia. It was clear that it was him, but Andy Reid continued to tell us it was an open competition, right? Do you remember it the same way, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, Wanya Morris did have a little bit of a knock during training camp, but I do
A little
remember
bit of a
the
knock
rest of
every
it
3
that
days,
same way.
and I think that's that's one of the things I'll point out that I was thinking about the other day. He would seem to have every few days, and you would know better than me because you're at like every single practice. I'm at every third or something. But I was there always seems to be a point during practice that Wanya Morris would have to walk off the field, right? He tends to get banged up a little bit more. Through the course of practice. And I almost wonder, looking back on it, was that what pissed Andy off? And that's why he went to Kingsley Suamataia. Like, I'm tired of this guy walking out of practice. Anyway, my point is, last year, Kingsley Suamataia obviously became the guy right away, but he never would let on to that fact. Now, here he is saying, yeah, he looks great. Before they ever even got him in the building, they just picked his name, and they're saying how great it is. And are we trying to, is he, not we, but is he trying to make up for the fact that they swung and missed so hard on Kingsley Suamataia? Like, what is the point, especially when you have Jalen Moore there? Why? I can't figure out why he's selling this so hard.
I think sometimes Andy Reid talks to players, to the media. I think this is part of it. I think just, hey, we're confident in this guy. We like what we're seeing. We're excited about him. I think that's what's going on. I don't for a second think that Andy Reid can look at this guy in a rookie minicamp and say he's ready for training camp right now. I know Sam's not saying that,
right?
And Sam's around him a lot more than you or I are. But I do think Andy is prone to hyperbole at times, and I think he does try to use the media as a way to try to hype guys up. I mean, he did it with who was the receiver who came in here a couple of years ago from Seattle. Josh, what's his name?
Oh,
he's been
Gordon.
around forever. Josh Gordon. Remember, Josh Gordon was he's so close, just so close. Never caught a pass. Soren fell for that one.
Oh, God. Why? Well, hey, I'm not.
Sinker.
Why
does that need to be said here?
Yeah, I'm just saying. I'm just reminding you. There's a list of players.
There are definitely guys that are like he won't speak negatively about. My point on this is, to Soren's point about after the draft, he didn't have to say anything. His usual remark in this situation would be, we just got to get him in the building and see. I can't answer that yet. Like,
right.
And after rookie minicamp, it's early. It's rookie mini, because that would be accurate. It's early. We got to see how he can move around once the contact starts, once the pads come on. We don't know any of that. And I will also remind people, FAU set out this time of year 2 years ago with a hand injury that none of us even knew he had during the draft process. And last year, Xavier Worthy had a teeny hamstring thing, and they said, you're out. We're sitting you out. You're going to watch OTAs next to Matt Nagy, because my point is, the Chiefs have a history of caution this time of year. And I think the fact that he's out there at all is a pretty good indication that he will be part of training. Not a guarantee, but a pretty good indication that he'll be part of training camp.
But Sam, what I was going to say, are they going to draft a guy in the first round
who they hate,
who has a medical issue, and sit there and say, "Oh, I guess we'll see what happens"? They're going to pump this up as best they can to make it feel like this knee is not going to be an issue. I don't know how it's going to play out. I hope he can play. I hope he's great.
Yeah.
But I think part of this is, like Soren says, part of it is a sales job. Like, we are doing the right thing here. It's not as big a gamble as people may think. This guy is going to be a really good player for us.
I want to point this out because Terry makes a pretty good point. He said, and Tony,
yes,
is going to be wide receiver one.
That's the one I was trying to think of.
That is, and I think that's the one you're going for. And I think Terry, nice call on that one, because that is the time he hyped it up. And so I was going to go back and ask you, first of all, screw you and Josh Gordon. Okay, that's number one. I don't know why we have to drag that out every time.
Well,
and Tommy,
and Clyde Edwards-Helaire too is in that category. There we go. Thank you.
Tommy can shove it there as well. I want to just reiterate, I will wear it more on Josh Gordon. then I will see EH. Just to be clear, if anyone's new to the Red Golden Bowl, when they signed Josh Gordon, I think I predicted the rest of the way he'd get there was mid-season or something. I thought 500 or 600 yards, 5 or 6 touchdowns. I thought he was going to be a baller. Totally wrong on that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I said, I love the player. I don't like where you're taking him. I love the idea of getting him in the 3rd round. I don't like taking him 32. So if that makes me president of his fan club, it was a small club, but I will wear it. I did like the player. I did like him coming out of LSU. And so I will wear that one as well. But I think the Kadarius Toney one is interesting. Is that what this is? Is he trying to sell himself? Because to your point, Sam, I think that's why I in what I'm reading, I'm trying to figure out what you're getting, not where you're coming from, Sam. Are you saying that because we don't usually hear this from him, that this means, wow, this guy, veteran coach who's seen a lot of football, is thinking he's got to steal. He has got a great guy. He is fired up, and they have fixed their left tackle spot. Is that what you think is going on in his head right now?
No, I think that because of what we heard him say, he's put himself out there in a way that he usually does not put himself out there. And when he does, the track record speaks to this guy's going to get every chance to play. He's going to get every chance to win the job. I think it's an indication of where the Chiefs feel like Josh Simmons is, and therefore it should be an indication to us of where Josh Simmons will probably conclude training camp this year.
I think we can also say that because of what we
started.
What I said was in our intro, I feel the percentage chance, whatever I had it at going into that media session, after hearing Andy Reid talk about him, I'm much more confident that they are going to try and start Josh Simmons than I was going in. I still think, look, I mean, he still hasn't had a contact practice. There is so much room to go. But my point is, I'm saying that. That's not what they said in this situation. And
that's what you're reading into it.
That's what I'm reading into it.
Right. Okay. And that's what I'm getting. And so, I Terry, again, nice point, nice night for Terry here. Curious what they saw in Kingsley from draft to regular season. Somebody messed up, right? And that's where I was going to go next. Louis Riddick was clearly told by somebody in the organization that Kingsley Suamataia was the answer at left tackle. And I go back now. I can look back at that one and say Kingsley Suamataia clearly had confidence issues, and so they were trying to sell it to we've got to boost this guy. Josh Simmons doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. Like he needs to be told he's good and you're healthy and that's going to make him go. So I am really puzzled. I don't have the answer. That's why I'm curious, where your head is as to why he's doing this, because when they hyped up to Louis Riddick, Kingsley Suamataia didn't work. They hyped up Kadarius Toney, or at least gave, tried to be like, hey, wide receiver 1. If that was a message to Kadarius Toney that we believe in you and it's going to work, that didn't work. If it was a message to Sky Moore, like, hey, you better bring it because this guy's wide receiver 1, that didn't work. Like, I like, who is the message for? If the message is for Josh Simmons, well, when it was for Kingsley Suamataia, it didn't work. Like, who are they? Is it for Jalen Moore? Like, okay, you got real competition, kid. If you think that we're just giving you left tackle, we're not, because we're real. This guy's close.
Yeah,
You better. Is that what it is to light a fire under Jalen Moore? Or maybe not to light a fire, but just to make sure. Because Tim Grunhard talked with guys that have been teammates of his with the 49ers, and the reports were glowing that he's a hardworking guy, prepared, knows his assignments, ready to work, all that kind of stuff. So that doesn't sound to me like a guy who needs a fire lit under his ass. But, I mean, is it just an attempt to breed competition, Jeff?
That could be part of it as well. I go back to my first point. I think it's more for Josh Simmons. I think it's more for them to say, we believe in you. We like what we see. He's going to hear those comments. I don't think Andy Reid's so caught up in the PR part of this that he's got to go out and try to openly say, look, this guy is moving in the right direction, blah, blah, blah. He's going to be, as Sam says, in a part of this training camp and competing for a job. But part of me thinks that's a little bit of a foolish way to approach this. I don't think he can be excited about him. I think the best case scenario for the Chiefs, and I said it when they drafted the guy, was Jalen Moore's able to play as your left tackle, and you're able to allow this guy to mature and physically get used to life in the NFL. I keep saying this. I never get excited about linemen until they start hitting people.
Right.
And so I don't care how they move around, what they show, how they look. End of the day,
100%.
he's got a patellar tendon injury. Coming in. And nobody was talking about Josh Simmons when last year started in college football as this guy is going to be this great offensive tackle. He played 6 games of college football last year at a high level, granted, but it's still a small sample size. And so this could go wrong.
I'm going to look something up.
Well, while you're looking that up, I'll point out, yes, I mean, this still has a lot of runway to go wrong or to go right. Like, there is a long way to go. And look, Andy Reid could have walked into the room in a good mood, and he wasn't a good mood. And he could have, because he's in a good mood, he could have decided, I'm going to be more forthcoming than I typically am. And I'm just going to say what I actually feel. And I'm going to say he looks like he's got some talent there, doggone it. Like an honest moment. I mean, that's what he felt in the moment. And I think any of Soren's possibilities are right. It could be motivating this player or that player, or, the right tackle, even with Juwan Taylor. I mean, there's all sorts of guys he
could just be happy by saying, I'm not looking at this crap I saw at the end of last year. I was
100%. Yes.
Someone looks like a left tackle out here.
That is my primary read on it is I think in his mind, as he's watching him move around, he's thinking, we have a left tackle with some talent here. And I don't know when the last time he thought that was.
I've Googled, real quick, I Googled the way too early 2025 NFL mock draft just to see, because everybody likes to put out a year in advance to see, was Josh Simmons listed in any of them? And no, there's a number of tackles and a number of guys you'll recognize, but at least in the first one I came across, because it all comes up with 2026 ones.
Well, I mean, Shedeur Sanders was the betting favorite to go number 1 overall. So,
right.
I'm just saying, I think he's a talented player. I'm just saying, going into the college season, it wasn't like, oh, this guy is a no-brainer first-round pick. Like,
and I'm trying to confirm. I'm trying to confirm or say, like, there was actually more hype around him than you realize. But I think at least right now, I'm trying to go through and see if I can find one that says, hey, Josh Simmons, 16 or something along those lines. And it's not. Will Campbell's in there from LSU. Banks from Texas is listed. But as of right now, I'm not seeing Josh Simmons. So that does, because I was like, we've done some research on the radio show about, James Pierce, pick 2 was one of these. Will Campbell 3. Here's another one. That's Will Campbell 3. Yeah. This is a year out.
Yeah.
What the hype was. And so I'm trying to see if there was a spot, because I think that always the way too early, I think, is, fun to look at. And I think, there are some names that you're like, okay, yeah, this guy belongs, but I am not. So that does back up your point there, Jeff.
Armand Membu was every bit as off the radar as Josh Simmons was.
Yes.
And
it's a 50-50. The way too early, like we've tracked it enough times, and there'll be 2 or 3 guys that are listed as next year's first round that don't even get drafted. Like Carson Beck is like number 4 or 5 pick in some of these, right? He's still in college, right? Nobody. DeLon Walker of Kentucky, who went in the 5th or 6th round.
Yep.
Right. He's listed as one of the guys. Oh, but look, there's Colston Loveland. Maybe you weren't such a snitch after all, Sam, with your passion.
Before Tyler Warren, was it?
I got to go. I'm just trying to scam for Josh Simmons mostly, but
I want to make this clear. I am not hating on Josh Simmons. I hope, again, that he's a good player for the Chiefs. I hope he has a great career. I'm always sympathetic to guys who have knee injuries. I was talking to a physical therapist friend of mine. I was asking about that patellar tendon injury, and he was like, yeah, it's a big deal, because he said it affects your ability to bend. It affects your ability to actually get into a squat-like position. And if you don't have that thing right, as a lineman, that's what you're going to do a lot of, right? You're going to be lowering your body into a squat-like position. So I just think it would be unfair to hype the guy too much when he's coming off a major injury. He needs time to get acclimated to the NFL. I want him to have that opportunity. I want him to have that kind of grace. And so I don't think Andy was trying to overhype him, but I do think there's people who would hear that and think, oh my God, he's going to be day 1 starter. We're all set here. And it may not be as simple as that.
Yeah. And I think we're all on the same page on that aspect of it, that there's a long way to go before Josh Simmons. They haven't even committed to allowing him to compete for the job yet. And from people I talk to, they are going to give him a chance to win the job. My point is, like, that was not part of what Andy Reid said, was he's going to have a chance to win left tackle. I'm just saying we we caught an honest glimpse of what Andy Reid thinks of Josh Simmons, and he thinks he's talented, and that will matter going forward.
And I will wrap up by saying I don't know that that's an honest assessment, or at least I don't know that it's one that we should buy.
That he thinks he's talented?
Well, of course they think he's talented. They took him 32nd.
Then what aspect of it? Because that's what he said.
He told Louis Riddick that Kingsley Suamataia had solved left tackle. That's my point. Is
but you said it? Oh, so you mean you don't mean honest? You mean accurate then? Because you said you don't think it's an honest assessment.
And I hope it's. Well, let me ask you this: which is worse, if he believes it and it's completely wrong, or if he knows it's wrong and he's just trying to sell it? Like believing it and being wrong is worse. Like heading into the year thinking Kingsley Suamataia had you solved at left tackle, that's worse.
This year,
and that hurts your credibility. That hurts you.
It hurts your credibility with Patrick Mahomes when you're like, we got it covered, Pat, and then he's running for his freaking life all the time. That's a problem.
That's not apples to apples in my mind, though, because last year you had to have Kingsley Suamataia be the guy. Who else was going to be the guy? This year, your most expensive offseason acquisition is Jalen Moore. So selling yourself into that, to me, is a different proposition than it was a year ago with Kingsley Suamataia. Last year, they made the mistake of going into the draft needing a left tackle. This year, the whole point of the offseason was not to make that same mistake again.
Agreed. But that still doesn't change that I don't know what the hell Andy Reid means. I don't know what he really is. I agree with everything you're saying.
We just spent 30 minutes analyzing what he meant, and we landed on who knows.
That's what I'm landing on. That's what I'm landing on for sure. If you need help with your parking lot, you certainly want to land with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait, get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222 or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. All right, I know Jalen Royals was a guy that had an interesting rookie minicamp, Sam. Day 1 versus day 2. A lot of people thought night and day. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, he had a pretty rough first day. I'll remind people that Xavier Worthy had the worst day of practice I've ever seen anybody have last year at first day of rookie minicamp. He could not even get a hand on a punt. I'm not saying he was dropping them. He couldn't get a hand on a punt off the jugs machine last year. He was so nervous. Jalen Royals had a really rough first day at the rookie minicamp. Roll out there for the first 2 days. The next day, they came back and fed him. Like the point of the offense was to try and feed Jalen Royals, and he had a really good day. So another guy, I mean, I feel like we shouldn't have to provide this context, but I'm going to say it anyway. Super early. I'm not saying it's what we're going to expect out of the guy at training camp, but there's some guys that I think certainly are pretty nervous out there in first days. And look, there's questions about Jalen Royals for sure that go beyond this little 2-day stint I saw him at rookie minicamp. Can he separate at this level? What's this jump going to be like from Utah State to the NFL? There's questions, and we're going to see some of that at training camp too.
By the way, I do like this one. Rice wasn't in shape. Didn't Rashee Rice throw up during?
He threw up during training camp.
Is that training? I know he did in training camp, but didn't he do it in minicamp too? I think I don't know if it's rookie camp.
The shape thing was a thing in the summer, and I can't remember whether that was rookie minicamp or whether. I will point out in the defense of some of these guys, and Jeff could speak to this probably better than I can, but
why? Because he's in shape.
Well, they are because he's been covering the NFL from a league-wide perspective much longer than I have. These guys train from the combine, And that is different than being ready to go play football.
Yeah. No, that is right. It's training for long jumps and broad jumps as opposed to, getting hitting and doing all the things that go into that. All right. So, Jeff, what I heard was Sam thinks Royals is going to the Hall of Fame. Do you think that's aggressive this early? No. But I think Sam makes a good point. Like you can't come in and have your head swim a little bit, and still be okay, right? But I mean, Royals is one of the guys. It is those positions and Nohl Williams, the defensive back. They're the ones that can actually get something out of it. You mentioned the point, and Carl Peterson and somebody quoted up here. I never get excited about football players practicing in their underwear. Was his comment from a long time ago. You can see a little bit more in the the 7-on-7 part of things. Like, so Royals having a second day, I'd hate to have seen them have 2 crap days.
Yeah, and they're also working against guys who are trying out who aren't, clearly going to be having long, if any, type of NFL career. So it is a process. And so, like Sam said, a lot of these guys are learning, well, they're all learning a new offense. They're all learning how to play different spots. They're all trying to showcase themselves in some way. So I never really get caught up in this guy didn't play well or practice well one day and they turn it on the next day. I do think he has opportunities to play here because you get past the top 3 guys on the roster, and then it's Juju, Sky Moore, Nico Remigio. There's spots to be won here and opportunities to get reps. So I have to fully believe that no matter what he's doing right now, he's going to be a player in the mix just because of his size, because of his success, his resume in college. He get 15 touchdown catches and all that stuff. I think the way he plays, separation is not going to be as big a deal because I think about him as being comparable to Rashee Rice in the way he's going to play, and he'll probably get opportunities in Rice's spot when he's suspended, whenever that happens. So I think the future is bright for Jalen Royals.
How about the UDFAs? Who are the guys that you think have the best chance of cracking the roster out of the guys that have been signed undrafted?
Well, the best camp I thought that anyone had over the 2 days we were there was Jake Brenningstool, the tight end from Clemson. And it's not because of that I'm saying I think he's got the best chance of making it. It's because they threw some money at him. They had some competition to get him. He thought, there was the chance that he'd have a 5th, 6th round pick. And I also thought there was an interesting note in his press conference when he said that Andy Reid was part of his phone call to try and get him to Kansas City. And so I followed up and I said, of your other teams, how many other coaches were calling you? And he said, none. Andy Reid was the only head coach that was part of the recruiting pitch to get him here. So they already liked the guy. Jared Wiley, I think, I don't know that he's going to be ready for the first day of training camp. It was mid-year when he got hurt. I think it was week 7 when he had the knee injury. This is a team that has kept 4 tight ends. He'd be the 4th. And I think, if with Wiley's uncertainty, you're potentially talking about tight end 3 being open. So I think all of these guys are long shots, right? They do keep UDFAs, Tershawn Wharton, Mike Pennell. Like, they keep these guys, but I think he probably, even if I'm not going to say he's got a 50% chance, I think his percentage chance is probably the highest out of anybody.
Yeah, I would agree. And I'm watching the little videos of some of the guys, as we knew we were going to talk about this. Like, he does look very Kelsey-esque. I mean, again, yeah, and I looked at some things that, try to show the negatives and whatnot. He's not big. He's tall.
He's tall, but not big, yeah.
Right. Like, so he's a push and pester on the blocker. He's a receiver. He's got to make it off his ability to catch the football. And I think probably one of the reasons why he didn't get drafted was because he ran like a 4.7 and change. Right? Like, if you're going to be that receiver type, they kind of think you're going to run 4.55, 4.60, and he ran a 4.71, but damn, he looks the part. Like, maybe it's wearing the single digit as a tight end. When I'm watching him at Clemson, I always think single digit guys look faster. And so maybe that's what it makes him look more receiverish.
That's why people come to us for that kind of analysis.
Listen, there's a note for you kids. If you're a fringy prospect for the college ranks, wear the single digit.
That's right. Tight end. Since the guy's got 3 numbers on his chest, right?
Yeah. Listen, I do agree. I think that's the guy, and I think it's interesting when you see the amount of money they gave him. They did win a bidding, which is one of the reasons why, by the way, I don't like the Chiefs throwing away 7th round picks, because they would have used a 7th round pick on this guy. That's what I think. And then you wouldn't have had to have, like, he's probably going to make more than, in fact, I know I've like what I've seen for the things, he's going to make $250,000 more than Rashard Smith.
Well, and you hit exclusive free agency, but you do hit a form of free agency earlier to where, I mean, we talked last podcast, Jack Cochran is $2 million player.
Yeah.
7th round picks aren't $2 million players 3 years into their career.
Yeah. Like one of the reasons, because I remember there's a guy, Turdell Sands, Jeff, you might remember back in the day.
I remember the name. Yeah.
He left the Chiefs and then went to the Raiders. He may be kicked around for close to 10 years. Never really got on the field for the Chiefs, but he was a 7th round pick. And I remember Dick Vermeil, going through the picks and like, how about this Turdell Sands? 6'10" or 6'7", 310, 320 pounds. Well, he's big. I mean, that's why we used the pick on him. We didn't want to screw around having to outbid people for him. That was literally his whole analysis. It wasn't like, oh yeah, he's big and we didn't want to screw around having to outbid. Like I love the honesty, but I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. I think here you see with Brenningstool that's what they ended up having to do. Like they decided they liked this guy. If they'd had an extra 7th round pick, they could have just taken him and wouldn't have been screwing around with this.
That's also why a lot of guys don't like being 6th, 7th round picks, because they want the opportunity to pick where they go.
Yeah.
And to get into a bidding war and to make a little more money. So yeah, a lot of those day 3 guys don't love the idea that they're going to end up being drafted. But I didn't see the guy, but it sounded like he did fairly well for himself, or popped a little bit. And it was the receiver from Florida, Elijah Badger.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
he's intriguing to me because, again, I think there's spots to be won. It sounds like he's got pretty good hands. I think he didn't drop anything in 61 targets last year. The stat I saw, he had 800 yards and 39 catches. So there's some big playability there, and he's got good size. He ran in the 4.4s at the combine, and so this is a guy who would have been a day 3 pick, a 6th round, 7th round pick. And again, I think if you're looking at holding on to an old, aging, bad knee Juju Smith-Schuster, or a younger guy who can make a difference for you, this could be the guy. I don't think Sky Moore's going to be around, so
no.
That's one spot you can look at right there.
Yeah, I'll throw in another name because I think he too got a little bit of money. Josiah Izzard. Did it autocorrect on me when I typed it? I typed it really fast, and maybe I've screwed up his name, because the way you looked at me makes me nervous that my thing autocorrected.
He doesn't know who he is.
Because
I don't know, but I'm interested to watch him work his way through this, though.
No, I'm right. I had to look it up because
I'm hoping that Brett Veach and everyone at least has this part down with them, though.
Yeah, because I looked at it and it's got the red squigglies on my note thing, and I'm like, oh crap, did it autocorrect on me? And I'm totally butchering the name. No, I got it right. Josiah, Coziah, Izzard, Izzard, D tackle from Penn State, and he was like a 4 or 5 star recruit when he came out, and they like his athleticism. What he sounds like is he's the diet version of OmarrNorman-Lott.
Yeah,
as in 6'2", pass for quick twitch, all this, but then so he was athletic, he was highly recruited, and then he was not productive, right? So it's let's take this athletic guy and see if our coaches can work him up. So I think he's a practice squad candidate more than anything, but there is a pedigree there for him. So it's a guy that I would keep an eye on there. And then I'll throw in one more. Did Jacoby Covington of USC do anything? Ran a slow 40 time at 4.6 and change, but was a very corner and a kind of a corner hybrid safety. Played some safety as well. So
big guy, right?
6'1", 207 pounds. Like I said, didn't run the 40 time, but played a lot at USC. Has some flexibility, kind of like they like with that corner, safety hybrid type of guy. Those are names that, as I looked at, I'm like, okay, these guys could be something. We'll find out when they get to camp, but they usually keep a couple of guys each year.
I don't think a couple, but
5, 10. How many, Sam?
Well, I mean, they'll all be part of. They'll all be part of. They'll all be up. They'll be in St. Joe. All these guys will be in St. Joe. That the guys have been signed, but they didn't keep anybody last year, right? Am I mistaken about? I mean, they've kept guys who have a history of being undrafted free agents.
But Carson Steele, right?
Yeah, they did keep Carson Steele. But Nico Remigio has been kept, but not initially. They did keep Tershawn Wharton right out of training camp. I think that was during the COVID year. As I mentioned earlier, they weren't the ones who kept Mike Pennell initially, but he's an undrafted guy.
They kept Fabian Lovett, didn't they? Did he start on the practice squad and then get bumped up, or did he make the roster? And then they kept the tackle from Marshall. I know, because I remember.
Ethan Driscoll. Ethan Driscoll,
because I remember going, I'm like, I'm not sure what's going on with this guy, but this one over here actually seems to be doing a little something. Because Driscoll was a guy that kind of flashed to me right away up at St. Joe, and he ended up making the roster. I'll give you one other name that I heard. I think it was maybe Matt Derrick talking about. Isn't there a linebacker from Pitt that was in the mix? Is that Brandon George? I gotta look and see.
Yeah. Brandon George look. The Chiefs have long coveted those guys that are athletic. And they're
special teams.
They therefore score well on the RAS metric thing that combines your cones, your agility, your 40, your height, your weight, all that stuff. And Brandon George is a guy that scored pretty well on that.
Yeah. It is. And so, and those are the names I think that I've heard, I mean, maybe there's a few more guys. I mean, they all have a shot. They'll we'll find out what they can do.
They'll have more important practices than they had this weekend in Kansas City.
You think so?
Yes.
That'll happen. Okay. All right. Good to know. We want to get into what the biggest needs are. We'll do that after you hear from our friends at Northland Injury Law. Northland Injury Law, Kansas City's Google 5-star rated personal injury lawyers, serving KC for more than 40 years, voted Kansas City's #1 accident lawyers, helping people with serious injuries from car accidents, work accidents, falls, and other personal injuries. Northland Injury Law doesn't get paid unless they get money for their client. Don't wait. Get compensated now. If you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT to 22222. Or call 816-400-HURT. That's 816-400-4878. The choice of a lawyer is an important one and should not be based solely upon advertisements. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's get into what the biggest needs are now. They've addressed free agency. They've addressed the draft now. What do we think are the biggest needs? We're going to go with our top three. What do we want to do? We want to go 1 to 3. Usually like to go top to bottom, Sam. You get very upset if we don't do it in that order. So we want to make sure that we keep you, happy and satisfied on this front. What's number one biggest need still for the Chiefs?
So we did this 2 weeks before the draft, maybe, where we talked about their biggest need ahead of the draft. Number 1, I had left tackle. That was their first round pick. Number 2, I had edge. That was their third round pick. Number 3, I had defensive tackle. That was their second round pick. Number 4, I had cornerback. That was another third round pick. And number 5, I had wide receiver, and that was their fourth round pick. So I found that kind of interesting. Number 6 on my list, and so it's therefore number 1 on my list right now is running back. And I'd be surprised if we didn't all have that number 1. But I think too much of this room is dependent on whether or not Rashee Smith can immediately compete, because the biggest question and the number 1 thing that the running backs did not do last year was provide big plays. They were dead last in the league in explosive plays. And I don't see why, other than Isaiah Pacheco being healthy does help, but I don't see why that the Chiefs are suddenly going to be a team capable of explosive rushes now this year, unless you think Rashee Smith, first year coming as a 7th round pick, is going to be a player.
Okay. Jeff, what do you got?
Running back. I mean, I think we're all going to have running back number 1
Yes.
for all the same reasons. I don't feel like they have. Look, I don't want to sell Isaiah Pacheco short, but I think he's plateaued, and everything after them, I'm not going to fall in love with the idea of Kareem Hunt duplicating what he did last year. I think he'll take a step back, and we just don't know what anybody else can really offer. And so, I think they have to find another running back. however they do it, who can be a difference maker for them both as a runner and receiver.
Yeah, I would agree. I think running back is the call, and I don't think they're going to address it. I mean,
No.
not with anybody that you're going to say, wow, that made a big difference, right? Like, does anybody think a solution is coming here in the second wave of free agency?
No, I mean, last year, I think it was not only that they need extra help at running back, you could actually pinpoint the fact that there weren't enough guys who were going to project to make the roster. I mean, they kept a UDFA, traded for running back after camp, then got a guy off his couch in September, and they were all on the team.
Yeah. The fact that Carson Steele became a training camp sensation and made this team tells you how much they misread this, and they're doing it again this year.
All right. Number 2. Where you go, Sam?
I've got safety number 2, but actually a particular role. I think they need somebody that can cover the back end. I mean, I talked a lot about this podcast last year. One of the reasons I thought for their explosive plays that we didn't talk enough about was the fact that Brian Cook was not great in coverage at the back end, and Justin Reed was more the in the box guy. So you needed Brian Cook to be great. I assume that Jaden Hicks is going to be more the in the box guy this year. So you need a safety that can cover the back end, and at least like that third safety to do that. I do think Shamari Connor will be more of a cover safety, but wasn't great in coverage as the nickel last year. So that's what I have number 2.
Okay. Jeff, number 2 for you?
Safety. More so depth. I don't like what's in the mix there.
Neither one of you thinks Mike Edwards solves a lot of the issues?
I just worry about a guy who's bounced from 2 different teams since he was here last time, right? He was in Buffalo and Tampa Bay, and nobody wanted to keep him. And so I think when he showed up here a few years ago, he was great for what they needed, but I think
2 years ago, wasn't it? When did
2 years ago?
2 years ago, yeah.
Yep. Okay, he was with Buffalo and Tampa then last year, right? He went to Buffalo when he left here.
He got cut midway through the year last year, yeah.
And so to me, that's a red flag, and I don't even know who the other guys are behind him. And
for a team that had really bad safety play, by the way, in Buffalo.
Yeah. They're going to go Jaden Hicks and Brian Cook. Behind him, Deion Bush, Mike Edwards. And
Shamari Connor will play safety next year.
You think he'll be exclusively safety?
Yeah, because they've got Nohl Williams now. They've got Christian Fulton.
Good point.
I mean, they've got 5 corners now who I think will make the team, and that puts Shamari Connor. He got drafted as a safety too. Like, he was forced into a nickel role and very evidently playing out of position.
And because of that reason, I don't have safety number 2. I have defensive tackle number 2. I still think that they're thin there. And I think, I hope OmarrNorman-Lott does a fantastic job, but they've pretty much said he's not going to play the run. And as we know, am president of the Mike Pennell fan club. So I'm happy to have Mike Pennell back. I think he serves a purpose, but I think they've got to get some real youth and athleticism in there. And the fact that they're selling Norman-Lott on just being a situational guy right up the bat. How about the anti-Josh Simmons treatment? They're saying he's a situational guy to begin with. I think defensive tackle is number 2. After Chris Jones, who can you count on?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
you got up and L to stuff the run, but I mean that's not the most important part of the equation. That's the guy. That's the right hander in a platoon. That's the short side platoon. If you're going to have a couple of guys in there. So, and then hopefully OmarrNorman-Lott solves that issue and makes it better. But I still think you'd like another defensive tackle in there for the rotation. Number 3 for you, Sam.
Yeah, I've got defensive tackle 3rd. Look, for the reasons you said, but I'll just point out one other thing, which is OmarrNorman-Lott, their draft pick, and Chris Jones are the only guys who were signed after this year at defensive tackle. And Chris Jones, I'll remind people, after 26, I think it is, you can save like $20 million by cutting him. So he's not a guarantee to be here after 2 more years. So it's a little bit immediate, a little bit of a look up down the line with defensive tackle that I've got at 3rd.
Okay. 3rd for you, Jeff?
Same thing. D-tackle, depth reasons. And you make the valid point that I looked at, which is just they're very specialized in what they have around him. And to say Jerry Tillery is going to be effective, I can't say that right now.
I'll make a conclusion. He won't be. I'm just he's making $1.5 million. I talked to some people in other towns, like, guys are pain in the ass. Like, I got 0. I'm not even convinced he'll make the roster.
Yeah, and so you're looking at it's serviceable is how I would describe what they have right now, and that may be a little bit too high of an assessment of what they are after Chris Jones.
Well, I go cornerback for number 3, and it has nothing to do with this
Cornerback.
year. They have plenty of guys for this year. It's what
Yeah,
you
they
said
got a
about
ton of those guys. Yeah.
Well, it's what you said about the defensive tackle spot. I mean, there are 3 guys that are gone after this year, and I think there's a strong case to be that if things go the way they want it to go, Najee Johnson won't be on this roster this year, and then Jalen Watson and Josh Williams come off. And I know,
But that's 6 cornerbacks, Trent. Like, are you keeping 7 cornerbacks or?
but I'm not for this year. Nothing to do with this year.
Well, you got to keep him on the roster this year, though. If you're
Well, I mean, I could cut Josh Williams, no problem. I could cut Najee Johnson, no problem. I mean, I think the only corners that you like Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Christian Fulton, you're counting on, and then you're hoping Nohl Williams. After that, they're just guys. They're just names.
Yeah.
But after that, like, I think the other thing is like, well, Trent McDuffie, they picked up the 5th-year option. They did, and part of it's because it's $13 million, and everyone's got that. You know, they say they want to sign him. Well, what's he going to ask for? And especially like he's a guy that, you know, are they racing in right now to give him more money? Because I think he feels like he's probably underpaid at $13 million. He's an All-Pro a couple of times, but not a Pro Bowler, so we get short shifted about what $9 million. I think it is from 22.
It's like 4 or 5, right?
Is it just 4 or 5? Okay. But he loses a lot of money. Like, I think he wants to get paid. I'm not 100% convinced that he is, you know, he's aware how young he's going to be when he hits the free agent market. There'll be a big market for him. So I'm not 100%. I think that they will get it done, but, you know, I'm not 100% sure. Christian Fulton, I like the signing, but how much is he going to play? And if he's hurt as much as he is, Jalen Watson came back last year, but was also hurt. And I'm with Jeff. I don't think he's the end all be all. So I like what they have at corner right now, but next year I don't. Next year corner is a need. So, and I think it's an important position for them, particularly with their issues up front. If you're not going to get after the passer, you better be able to cover. So I'll take corner number 3. I'm okay with the safeties, right? I think the safeties are in pretty good shape. To me, it's the future at corner. But I will say this, I think the depth overall on this team for 2025 is in pretty good shape.
I think their defense, when I went through this exercise, is in better shape depth-wise than it was last year. Other than really, you know, the defensive tackle that we mentioned. I mean, Chris Jones gets hurt, like they're in a lot of trouble if he's missing games in a way that I don't think we would have said like 3-4 years ago. Like and look, that's what happens. You put that amount of money on somebody, you're counting on that. There's one other positions that we didn't discuss that I really considered instead of defensive tackle, which is tight end. I mean, certainly if you're looking at next year for tight end,
yes,
like I talked about an undrafted guy that I think has a shot to make the team for a reason. Like Jared Wiley has 1 career catch. Noah Gray.
I don't think 4 on my list too. I almost made it top 3.
Okay. I don't think I'm quite as high on Noah Gray.
You're a Noah Gray hater.
I like him. I like Noah Gray. I'm just saying he is a tight end too. Like, are you guys confident if he's going to be tight end 1 in a Patrick Mahomes passing offense?
I am fine with him being tight end number 1 as long as they come along at wideout. Like, is he going to be Travis Kelce? No, but no one is.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but am I fine? Like, I think the idea of finding the next Travis Kelce, you will waste a lot of draft pick and cap resources and be really disappointed.
And see, I think there's in between.
It's amazing that they got Travis Kelce after having Tony Gonzalez for all the years. You're not supposed to have 2 of the greatest tight ends of all time in one franchise. And so the future is going to be at the wide receiver position. And I think they've got to recognize that. So I think Noah Gray will be fine working the underneath. It won't look like it did with Kelce, but you know, and that'll be interesting to see how Patrick Mahomes matures. You know, can he mature away from that security blanket over the middle? Or do we find that they're like, you know, after a year and like, oh, Patrick's, you know, we got to get another tight end in here. Do they start, you know, overspending to try to find that guy? I don't know. Patrick's going to have to play it a little bit differently. But Noah Gray, there's a lot of advanced analytics that say Noah Gray should be playing. They will tell you should be playing over Travis Kelce. Just off his speed and, well, just he's much faster. I mean, there was one that just came out recently about how you know, I can't remember what it was. I'll have to go back and look at it, but they were just talking about that. He was an underutilized player for the Chiefs. I think part of it's because like everyone knows they're not going to throw him the ball. So, once Travis Kelce goes away and he's tight end one, he'll get covered more, and some of those metrics won't look quite as good. But, I'm fine with Noah Gray. But I think he'll do a good job. But they do need somebody else, and I'd like to see him get some 2 tight end sets, and have guys that are real threats, and maybe guys that can block somebody too.
Yeah, and there's, I guess my point is like I agree with your point on Kelce, but like the spectrum between Noah Gray and Kelce, I think is pretty wide. I think you can find somebody that falls within, the gap there. I don't think it has to be Travis Kelce, but like you'll need somebody beyond Noah Gray. And by the way, I know people love this stat, but I actually do know that analytics guys in the league love this stat. Noah Gray had a far less yards per route run last year than Travis Kelce did. He actually had a less yards per route run than Peyton Hendershot did a year ago. So I think Noah Gray
training stool is here to save the day.
That's a mic drop from Sam.
Yeah.
Little mic drop.
He's a good player. I'm just saying, tight end one in a pass heavy offense. I think I would also like somebody else that can catch the ball at that position too.
Yeah. Ask the Dallas Cowboys how hard it is to replace Jason Witten.
Yeah, they've been looking for a while. Listen, you can always support the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast by supporting our great sponsors like Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann keeps your parking lot safer, helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Focus on your business. Let Gann Asphalt and Concrete focus on your parking lot. One contractor, all things parking lot. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com and our friends at Northland Injury Law. If you've been hurt in an accident, you have a case, text HURT to 22222. That's HURT, H-U-R-T to 22222, Kansas City's Google. 5-star rated personal injury lawyers are Northland Injury Law. Call 816-400-HURT. For Jeff Chadiha of the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.